Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And if you've ever struggled with breaking through distractions to get to your life goals, then guess what? This is the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word, I promise. Because you know what? Today's guest has spent 25 years struggling with ADHD. He felt trapped and unfocused. And you know what? He felt like he was losing until, this is really important, until he decided to lean in and build systems that help him to turn this whole thing around and become hyper-focused. This man is amazing. You know, since then, he's become a best-selling author multiple times over. I think it's over 10, but he's going to have to tell us about that. I think it is, but he's going to tell us. He's also acquired over $12 million worth of multifamily real estate. He's launched multiple podcasts. He's traveled the world, get this, as a full-time rock climber, which is amazing. He is also the host of the Multifamily Investing Made Simple, which is an awesome podcast. You got to listen to it. It's amazing. And he is the founding partner of Invictus Capital. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Anthony Vicino. Anthony, what's up, man?
Billy, that is easily the best intro I've ever been given. I am going to pay you to follow me around from now on and introduce me whenever I walk into a room, because that was great. I feel like I'm on cloud 9 right now. Thanks for having me, man.
I love this. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be so much fun. I love your energy. I love what you bring to the table, and just knowing more about you, man. This is going to be a fantastic conversation, and I'm cool to follow you around, man. I'll be happy to do that.
Excellent.
So here we go. So listen, so as you know, I like to ask everybody kind of the same 5 questions, 2 in the beginning, 3 in the end, and kind of in the middle, we're just going to get to know you even more, man. So the thing is, first of all, help us understand, where do you live in the United States?
I live in this nice, cold location called Minneapolis, Minnesota. We are very far north in the Midwest, right next to the Canadian border. And the thing that we're most known for is the fact that 8 months out of the year, we are very, very cold, covered in snow. But don't let that deter you, because Minneapolis actually has all 4 beautiful seasons that you could ever want. Right now, we're in the midst of transitioning from spring into summer, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, man. And so when it's not those 8 months, the other 4 months are amazing. And I've always heard amazing things about Minnesota as a state and Minneapolis as a city. So awesome.
It's such a fun, it's a place that it's not on a lot of people's radar, because it's not like the biggest city, and it's kind of a flyover state. Nobody really goes to Minnesota for, touristy reasons in a lot of cases, but that's kind of a mistake, because there's just so much culture in Minneapolis in general. It's one of the top ranked cities in the United States for quality of life, for culture, for diversity, for food. It just has all these things going for it. It's just a really fun city that I enjoy quite a lot. And I've lived in a lot of cities, so I can say this being unbiased.
Yeah. And you're going to tell us a little bit about your Going Long story, because this is awesome. I remember the first time we had a conversation and talking about California and all that other kind of good stuff, but we'll get back to that. Because here's the thing, the second question, and this is something that we really love here on the Going Long podcast, and is for you to share with us, Anthony, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours? So
can I share 2 things?
You can over deliver. Go right ahead.
Okay, I want to over deliver. Yeah. Well, there's 2, because one is yesterday morning I got to play tennis with my buddy Brandon, and so we try to get together and play tennis once a week, and that is one of the highlights of my week, because my life is very go, very goal oriented. I love working, and I maybe work too much. And so anytime that I can actually prioritize hanging out with a close friend and playing and just having fun, that's a really big win for me. And so that was a really big one. Then the second one is today. So my significant other, my partner, Jamie, she is building this amazing Facebook community for women. And she has been struggling with putting out video content. And so she put out her first video today. And I was really, really proud of that because it was very, very hard for her. So like, those are my two big wins for today.
Fantastic. Well, appreciate you sharing that. And I know Brandon will be happy to know that you get that kind of that one-to-one time and be able to do things where you're not go, and just enjoy that. And then congratulations, Jamie, as well, for getting that video content out there. The first one's the most difficult. Now you're going to be rocking and rolling. So
hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So listen, so Anthony, the thing is, I kind of gave a high level overview of some of the things that you've done in your life, some of the things that you wanted to share with us, get to know you a bit more. But I'd love for you to share with the Going Long family your backstory in your own words. And if you also want to highlight maybe some of the things that you consider to be really important decisions that you helped to get you to this point in your journey. And then from there, you and I are going to kind of take it forward from there.
Sure. So the thing that you have to know about me is that I have like really severe ADHD. And this was a real issue for the first 25, 26 years of my life. I didn't have the systems or the processes to really cope with it so that I could be a functioning member of society. And so this kind of manifested itself in a lot of negative ways. So in college, I really struggled as a student. If it wasn't for the fact that I can ace pretty much any test you put in front of me, I would have flunked out of school. Like it just happens to be I'm really good at taking tests. That was my only saving grace. I was really bad as an employee, and this became really evident because I was fired from pretty much every job I ever had. I worked landscaping one summer. The foreman hated me so much that he would just have me go into one corner of a field and dig a hole all day, and then at the end of the day, fill the hole. It wasn't even a hole to be used for anything. So I was not a good employee. And so I was getting fired a lot, but it was clear like the corporate career route was never going to work for me. And then I also struggled with friendships and relationships because at the end of the day, I was really unfocused, undisciplined, and ultimately unreliable. And those aren't great attributes for, a friend or an employee or really a functioning member of society, as I put it. And so coming out of college, I knew I wasn't going to be able to go the corporate route. I had to figure out a path for myself. And so I started looking at what I could do that would give me maximum freedom and control over my life. And it just happened to be that I was gifted as an athlete. And so I could eke out a career as a professional rock climber. So that's what I did for about a decade is I went and traveled the world, lived in a van. It's not glorious to be a full-time rock climber, but it was a lot of fun for me because I didn't have to worry about answering to anybody else. I didn't have to be accountable to anybody. I could just go and be in the wilderness and do my thing. But this came to this my life kind of hit this inflection point, came to a crossroads when I tried to marry this woman and I went to her parents and said, "Hey, can I marry your daughter?" And they said, "Well, how are you going to provide for her?" And I was like, I never really thought about what it meant to have somebody else relying on me and dependent in that way. And so it really forced me to look at my life and say, okay, what am I doing? Because inside I knew I had this potential. I knew I had this greatness, but I really wasn't tapping into it. And so what I did was I started writing. And it's such a weird thing because up until that moment, if you'd asked me like, where's your life taking you? I never would have said that writing and writing books was going to become my thing. But that was my way out of rock climbing and to create this life for myself. So I started writing and then I started publishing novels, science fiction and fantasy novels, and that started doing well. And it came to this point where I was like writing all the time by myself in my office. And it wasn't, I would say, healthy for me because I'm an introvert. And if I spend all day in an office writing for myself, then I'm not out there connecting with the world, with people, and I'm not contributing and making an impact. And so I started looking for ways that I could do that, how I could make an impact. And a friend, he came to me one day, and this is really the moment where my life really pivoted. He came to me and he said, "Hey, let's build a business together." And I was like, build a business? Okay. I've never done that before. But it turned out that a lot of the habits and the routines that I had to put into place for me to even become like at least minimally productive and control my ADHD, turns out a lot of those habits worked really well to build businesses. And in a relatively short period of time, we built a number of businesses that did really, really well. And then from there, it was just a hop skip over into real estate. And that's where I focus right now primarily, is in multifamily apartment syndications. And we focus it up here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's our home market. We're vertically integrated. So we do property management in-house. And we try to serve our customers, and our customers are our residents and our investors every day to the best of our ability by removing as much of the middleman as possible, so that we are the frontline troops. We're there every day dealing with our residents and trying to provide awesome living arrangements for them, and then also trying to deliver excellent returns for our investors. So that's really the super long, convoluted answer to your question of where I come from and who I am.
I love just so much about that story, because I mean, so many times we get on here and we talk directly about the real estate and this is what's going on, but there are realities in life, and whether that is you have a family, you have some kind of challenge, and I mean, here you're very open and honest with us about a struggle that you had with ADHD, right? And something that, and I say had, but is in it maybe something that still manifests itself, but you built systems around yourself that allow you to then be hyper-focused so that you can actually get things done and get priorities done. I'm going to go out on a limb. But the thing is, there's something that you said through that story, and I'm sure that other people that are here, part of the Going Along family, are like, well, hang on a second. Well, this guy was just telling all this stuff, and then he was a rock climber, and then he was writing books, and then I don't understand how one of his friends, for this guy who was writing books and climbing rocks, walked over and was like, hey, you want to start a business together? So I know you talked about you had some of the skills, but what was it that motivated your friend to pick you to build whatever business when you probably seem like the least likely candidate to do that?
So I think it was just the perfect confluence of events. One was that woman that I wanted to marry. I got her parents' permission, but she ended up leaving me about a year later. And I found myself living in the back of a van, and I was really in debt, and I was alone, and I was still writing. And so now I'm literally that writer who lives in a van down by the river who has a lot of debt. And so that's not like a great setup story for the life that we all dream for ourselves. And I was really depressed. And a friend came to me, and there was two things here. One was he was trying to help get me out of that place of, hey, we need to get you out of this. You're just writing all day in your van and you're happy to do that, but we need to get you out and about. So let's get you out of the wallowing a little bit. The second thing was what we were building was uniquely suited to my skills and my network and my vision. So we built a high-rise window washing company. It's nothing sexy, but it played really well because I have a climbing background. So I'm really good on a rope, and I know rope systems, and I know other climbers. And when you know other climbers who are really good on ropes, and you're trying to build a window washing company where everybody's dangling from ropes, it was the perfect confluence of events. And so we were able to use our unique skill set to penetrate a market in a way that nobody else was. We could wash windows faster and cheaper because we had this very unique ability. And so I got really fortunate that he saw that opportunity in me, and he knew that I'd be a good fit for that, but also that he wanted to help me out. And from there, it was like, once we realized that I had some innate ability beyond just, hanging from a rope, that the skills that I had developed as a writer would allow us to, increase our marketing and the effectiveness of our copywriting. Well, then we started to really see some pretty crazy growth, and those skills. Business is really interesting because once you have this certain set of skills, you can apply them across a whole wide domain of different industries and services. And that's what we discovered, was that once you know how to create an awesome product, how to put that in front of people and convince them that that is the thing that's going to solve their problems, if you could do that, you could build anything.
Mm-hmm. So my question is, number one, yes, you definitely can build anything. You can help people to understand that whatever the product or service that you offer can help them to serve their needs, get them to the benefits that they're desiring. And you went from rock climbing to real estate. And you yourself just said that there are transferable skills that you learn all the time. So in my mind, I'm going, well, what is the transferable skill that you went from rock climbing to window washing to real estate?
Mm-hmm. So the number one thing with rock climbing, this is interesting. And somebody asked me this question a while back on a podcast. It was like, what skills did you learn in rock climbing that you could transfer to business? And I was like, that's interesting. At its core, what rock climbing is we're seeking out challenge and discomfort every single day. There are easier ways to get to the top of a mountain, to the top of a cliff, rather than the path that we are choosing. So we're intentionally putting ourselves in the path of difficulty and challenge and having to overcome a lot of the fear and doubt that you're going to incur in that, and then a lot of problem solving. And when you live in that environment where every single day you're seeking out difficulty and you're trying to problem solve new solutions, those are transferable skills to entrepreneurship and building businesses. Because a lot of times, every single day as an entrepreneur, you wake up and you have to solve new problems, and you have to have the belief in yourself that you can overcome that and not be deterred by failure. Because rock climbing, we fail 99% of the time before we finally succeed and get to the top of a cliff. And in business, you're going to fail a lot. And so if you can build the skill of failing forward, whether that's in rock climbing or in business, you're going to do well. And so that's the number one thing that I took away from rock climbing and transferred really well into building businesses.
And because there was a stop in between with the window washing. And so that would just be, I guess, that was just kind of a stop along the way. But between those two things is really what you are being able to see. And I love the fact that you're talking about being able to fail forward. And I've always been taught too, you fail fast and you fail frequently, because eventually you get to what it is that you are, you're doing and the goals you want to get to. So, and I guess maybe, and there's probably a lot of people that struggle with just distraction in general, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to get to the real estate thing, but this is, I love that you have this experience, Anthony, because you can really share with a lot of people, and even myself. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm bouncing from one thing to the next. And you've created systems to help people that get distracted sometimes maybe really easily. Talk to us about what are some of the things that you have been able to do, or some of the systems that have worked for you. And those systems, what are some of the results that they are allowing you to get as you are becoming more focused?
So, one of the things, it's very counterintuitive, and it's something that I resisted for a long time as somebody with ADHD and who really values personal freedom. Like, I really resisted the idea of schedules and having structure. But what you discover is that it's actually in creating really rigid structure that I'm able to thrive, because when the world is full of limitless potential and you could go in any number of 1,000 different ways in any given moment, well, that is not a place conducive to finding the effective route forward. You're just going to spin your wheels and look at all those shiny different objects. And that's what happens with people, whether they have ADHD or they're just, I would say normal, whatever that really means. We all struggle with distraction in this digital age. There's so many different ways that you could go. So the thing that actually unlocked for me was recognizing that within structure, there's freedom. So once I could create that box and say, this is what I need to be doing, then I was free within that box to express myself creatively and find solutions. And so number one was creating really rigid systems around myself and sticking with those. So different habits and routines, whether that's my morning routine or my time blocking methodology, which is, it's not enough just to have a to-do list. You have to have that to-do list scheduled and put onto the calendar. And so I live my life minute by minute based off of what my calendar tells me to do next. So when I look at that, and like some people would look at that and say, well, that sounds like a prison. But really what it allows me to do is when I look at my calendar and say, oh, for the next hour, I'm on this podcast with Billy. Okay, that's where I need to show up. And I can go anywhere in that conversation. I can express myself, but that's where I'm focused right now. Now I'm not thinking about this other thing or thinking about that thing. I'm here. And so time blocking and structure, like that's really the unlock. But a lot of people resist that because they're like, oh, feels like that would take all the fun out of life. I love to live spontaneously. And it's like, that's fine, but you're also going to live pretty ineffectively too.
And so, and I love just what you said in terms of within structures where you find your freedom. And it does seem counterintuitive as you've broken it down for us, saying, hey, listen, within this X amount of time frame, you give yourself the freedom to bounce around. But during that specific time frame, you are dedicated to that specific thing, which is, I know is easy to write on paper, but sometimes it can be very, very difficult to I guess to accomplish. How do you keep yourself on task, right? Because sometimes, like, and just imagine, like, you say that you're going to meet with person X and it's this specific hour, but that person shows up late, and so it's kind of bumped things off. Like, how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure that that's also one of the things that people have to deal with when they're trying to be hyper focused.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is like life gets in the way, and schedule is, you want to schedule your perfect day, but recognize that there's going to be an infinite multitude of things that crop up to make that not happen. And so you need to have a little bit of flexibility in your schedule. And so I don't actually schedule my day back to back to back tasks. I leave buffers between things. I leave dead space. And I think this is where people get into trouble, is that they schedule things like, I'm going to go from this thing directly to this thing, directly to that next thing. And then when one thing gets in the way, it gets a little bit behind schedule, it throws everything off. And so I leave lots of buffer space between tasks. And this is hard because as high achievers, we all overestimate exactly how much we can get done in a day, but we underestimate what we can get done in 5 years, right? And so we pack our days full of things thinking that's a good full day. And then we get to the end and it's like, well, I couldn't get to that. I couldn't get to that because I underestimated how long it would take to travel between this to that. And then this person was late. And then this thing, I ate my sandwich and it took longer than expected. And next thing you know, you look at your day and you only got 50% of the things done and you feel bad about that. And so what I do is I say, okay, what are the 3 things? Like on any given day, I can only get 3 really important things done. Probably only 1, but on a really good day, I can get 3 things. What would those 3 things be? And that's what I schedule my day around. And I say, that is locked in. That's getting done. Everything else is fluid around that.
Okay. And that's helping, because that's really about, at the end of the day, that's how you prioritize, right? Those are the 3 things. And because I think there's a lot of times that there you have your time allocation as well as your prioritization that really meld together. And that is about what tasks, or what, I don't know if it's task or what items you are actually going to move forward in any given time period. Would that be, would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the hardest things is looking at all the things that you could do and then prioritizing them and saying, like, what is the most important thing? But even that simple mental exercise of looking at what's on the list and saying, what is the most important thing? If at the end of the day, I only got one thing done that was going to move my life, my business forward the most, what would that thing be? And whatever that is, that's what you need to focus on. But it's hard because usually that thing that would be at the top of the list, it's also one of the hardest things. It requires the most focus, intention, concentration, time. Whereas, what's easy is like checking my emails, going on social media. Like, I can convince myself that those are important, effective things for my time. But when you rank it according to like what's the most important thing, it's probably not that.
Yeah, completely agree. So this is helping us understand more about you and some of the things that you've been able to do and how you are hyper-focused in your beginning and how you are gaining and getting results. One of the things we also like to talk about here is people that are investing beyond their backyard. They're in one place and they're investing in another. And at the same time, one of the things that we also talk about, right, is it's the context. And so you made it really clear earlier that you are focused. You have something that you are focused your company in terms of being vertically integrated. And so we always talk about here in the Go Along podcast, number one, as an investor, active or passive, you need to be very, very clear on what it is that you want to be able to do. What is your personal philosophy? Are you looking for cash flow? Are you looking for quality of life? Are you looking for, location freedom? Whatever the case may be, you have to be clear on that. And then afterwards, you have to find the specific locations where you are able to gain the benefits that you're looking for. After that, then you find the team, right? And the team needs to really understand and dominate the location, because whether you're active or passive, that's the part of the team, especially when you're thinking larger, really needs to be in place. And then afterwards, if you buy a 150 apartment unit, if you buy ATM machines, if you buy whatever, it all is kind of aligned. Mm-hmm. So with that said, would love for you to talk to us about why the decision to become a vertically integrated multifamily operation. Well, first of all, tell us what that means, and then help us understand why you made that decision to go that route.
Yeah, so being vertically integrated means that we don't rely on third-party property managers to operate our properties. We handle that ourselves. And that's not to say that I'm on the property doing leasing or maintenance or anything like that. It means that we built out a property management company in-house where we have our own employees, and all they do every single day is manage our assets. They're on the ground working with our residents. They're working with the units on renovations and maintenance. And we did this from the very beginning because it's very difficult, one, to find alignment of interest with a third-party property manager. They're never going to care about your product as much as you care. And for myself and my partner, Dan, we're control freaks. We want to do things in a particular way up to the best of our ability. And when you're hiring out a middle person to manage your assets, they probably have a large portfolio of other assets that they're also managing. And so they're never going to care about your baby as much as you care about your baby. So that was one aspect of the decision for us. But I think even more core to the decision is just a fundamental principle of business that I will take to my grave, which is whoever's closest to the consumer wins. There's a reason that Amazon's winning and that Facebook is winning, is because they are the platform where the consumers are hanging out. And when you have middle people in the equation, your business is always reliant in some degree on that person or that entity. And so if you can remove that friction, if you can remove that person and go direct to the consumer, then long-term, you have the control. Now, that's a lot harder because it means that you can't rely on an expert who has built out the systems and processes, and they've established themselves as the specialist. So a property management company, they have a lot of experience, and that's very valuable. But for us, we said, okay, it's going to be longer, it's going to be slower and harder to build this, but long term, it's going to put us into a position where we're not reliant on that third party. And for us, that was the correct decision. But that's not to say that that's the only decision or that it was the right decision. It's about understanding your context. Like some investors, it's not the right decision. It just so happens that I have operational experience from also starting a manufacturing company, that we understand systems and people and hiring and putting these processes into place. So again, looking at what are your unique skill sets and then finding ways to apply them.
Yeah. So being able to find those unique skill sets, finding ways to apply them, and also too, one of the things that you just said is absolutely key. It's the context, right? And so as we're looking to be able to help people invest beyond their backyard, there are many people that are thinking to themselves, well, you know what? I actually like living in name your city, name your continent. And I didn't know anything about Minneapolis. And I was listening to this guy, Anthony, and it sounds really cool. And there's all this kind of stuff happening. And you know what? Their team is really awesome, and they know the location, and they do this and they do that. And so this is one of the ways that we're also able to help people. So one of the things that I would love for you to tell us, because this is really an opportunity to help our Going Long family understand more about what are some of the different things that are attracting people to Minneapolis or attracting to the state of Minnesota, in terms of where you all have coverage, because you can help to educate us.
Yeah, I love talking about Minneapolis. So this is a soapbox that I will gladly jump on top of. So we have a bunch of different things going for us. But one is, whenever you're looking at a market, you always start from the macroeconomic perspective. What is the job situation? Is it growing? Are there industries moving in? Is the population growing? What's the median income? All these things that you want to look at. But it all starts with the thriving, beating heart of a healthy economy. And one of the things that's most fascinating about Minneapolis that a lot of people don't realize is that we have more Fortune 500 companies headquartered here per capita than anywhere else in the United States. And it's spread across a very wide array of industries. So it's not all just concentrated in one sector, like Detroit in the early 2000s with the automotive industry. They were very, very locked into that one thing. So when that one industry takes a hit, the city takes a hit. So that's one thing, is that we have a really wide economic base. And what's interesting is when you back test, say into 2007, 2008, the financial crisis, and to see how Minneapolis performed, because we have this economic strength, we actually didn't suffer very hard at all. We saw a little bit of a dip, specifically in the multifamily sector, where rents stagnated, but never really dropped. Valuations never really dropped. And within 2 to 3 years, we were right back on pace to where we were before. And that's the other part of it, is that we're not that city that's ever going to be on the top of any list in terms of like the hottest new market to invest in, but we're always number 7 or 8. If you look at all these top 10 lists, like Minneapolis is almost always in the top 10, but people never look beyond the top 3. They go, yeah, it's not in the top 3. It's dead to me. If it's not Austin, Nashville, or, San Antonio, wherever, like I don't want to invest there. But the top 10 is still a very strong place to be. And what we like about that is, because we never see this hockey stick growth of, population and economic growth, we're always just chugging along. You can set a timer to that. It's reliable. We like that about that industry, or about that, that growth model. And then the other thing is, yeah, we have the growth, we have the strong economics, but then like, do people actually want to live there? And this is the question that people are always surprised to hear the answer to when it comes to Minneapolis. Is because it is cold. And a lot of people think like, oh, it's just a winter, hellscape where it's like, oh, I don't want to live there. But it's what's actually going on underneath the surface that's really compelling. So we are the fittest city in the country. We have the best bike system, best park system in the country. I'm sorry, I think I said city, but in the country. And so we have all these things that are going for us as a culture. We're a very culturally diverse city where it's attracting a lot of attention from millennials who are like, hey, I want to live there because we have a really high median income in relation to our cost of living. So our affordability index is crazy strong when you compare it to other major macro cities. And so people's money goes a lot further than if you were living on one of the coasts. And so all this kind of comes together in one big crazy melting pot to make Minneapolis a surprisingly robust and desirable city to live in.
And, and this is such a helpful thing, because a lot of what you were, some of the words that you were using, so consistent, reliable, and these are words that, as a fellow Midwesterner, these are some of the things that we are used to understanding about the Midwest. There's not these massive fluctuations. And then on top of that, when you can talk about Fortune 500 presence, when you talk about diversification of industries, growth, and these types of things, these are very good indicators to help people that maybe have never even known about Minneapolis up until today, to get an idea of, all right, well, look, you know what, I want to actually find out some more. I want to look up some more. This actually sounds really interesting, and want to continue down this path. And this is, once again, this is one of the keys about being able to have the right team member in a specific location, because that is a value to you as an active investor and as a passive investor, because you know that you have that part of the team. As I always like to say, #teamwork makes the dream work, because it absolutely does. Was there anything that you wanted to add on top of that, Anthony?
The two other things that I'll add on, because I think this is always really cool to throw into the mix too. And if you're not from the United States or Minnesota in particular, then you might not even realize this, is that we also have the University of Minnesota, which is the 3rd largest university in the country, which is boggling to most people when they learn that. And then we also have the #1 healthcare provider in the Mayo Clinics. And so it's like all these things. I just love Minneapolis because I think I've lived in San Francisco, I've lived in Nashville, I've lived in all these places. And it always astounds me that people just consistently overlook Minneapolis, because I think it's one of the coolest places I've ever lived. And when I started my investing journey in real estate, it just happened to be that when I actually started, I lived in San Francisco. So I invested there. And then I moved to Minnesota. And so I kept investing here. And I just absolutely love it. But that might not be the case for everybody. Like, depending on where you live, it might not be the best investment market. I got really fortunate that my backyard is great. So, to the thesis of this podcast and to your audience who's looking at like, where should I be investing? I think you nailed it on the head when it's like, you start really by understanding what's your desired outcome. Who are you as an investor? What are your goals? And then find the market. And then from there, find the operators that you can work with.
Yeah. And so would you say, Because I mean, you're working with people that are there in the state and you're working with people out of state. What is the common element that you see for those people that are out of state that are like, dude, I want to, this, I like Minneapolis. I didn't know about this before.
Mm-hmm. The big thing is when we talk a lot with our West and East Coast investors who they can't find good returns in their markets. It's very, very difficult. What they're always astounded to find is that our market provides strong cash flow and strong appreciation. It's not going to set the world on fire in terms of appreciation, but it's solid. And when you couple that with solid cash flow and the types of assets that we play in, they're cash flowing from day one. When you provide that mix of return structure, it's something that I would say our coastal investors and our international investors, they don't see that a lot. And so one of the things Dan and we harp on a lot is that it's really easy to show strong returns and to project strong returns. But the backside of that you always need to be, keeping in mind is what's the risk that I'm assuming to achieve those returns. And that is the strongest argument that we have in favor of investing in our market is that the risk return profile is so solid in terms of we can achieve really above average returns while doing so in an environment of low risk. And I think it's Howard Marks, the famed investor, who says that a skilled investor is not marked by their ability to achieve above average returns. It's their ability to manage risk. And that's the thing that we feel very, very strongly about. And it's something that I don't think enough investors think about or talk about is what's the risk that you're incurring to achieve the results that you're achieving?
Yeah, there's a saying that is, the PowerPoint slide, everything works on the PowerPoint slide, right? And exactly. And then afterwards, it is about asking many times it's the hard question. And it is what risk is associated with this type of return? Sometimes is it a matter of saying, okay, I'm going to take a couple of 50 basis points less or 100 basis points less or 50.5% or 1% less and be able to sleep better at night because there's not as much risk associated with that. And of course, risk means different things to different people. And so, but it is a factor that I'm glad that you brought up, Anthony, because it is something that not enough people really talk about or even think about until it's too late.
Too late. Yeah. And you nailed it on the head is that there is no one set definition of risk. It's different for everybody and there's no metric. It's not like with IRR or cash on cash. You can project that and say, it's this. There's no comparable thing. And you could say like, there's the Black-Scholes model, maybe if you're investing in stocks, but even that's dubious. And so it's like, how do you really like measure objectively risk? That's hard. But I will say that the number one risk that any investment is, stands to suffer from is operational risk. It's who's operating the deal and what is their skills in actually operating that. That's the number one risk.
Yeah, as well as understanding, and you get a clear picture of understanding their track record. It's something that's absolutely key. So I'm just curious. So like so you talked about your East Coast and your West Coast, but I'd love for you just to kind of give us an idea before we get ready to go into the going long final three. Like, who are the people that are reaching out to you? Kind of what is that person looking for? Who are they? Who's your ideal client that you feel like you all are, or not that you feel like, but that you're actually delivering value for that person?
A lot of the people that we work with a lot of medical sales device salespeople. It's really interesting. I would say like the majority of our investors come from that sector. They're making really good money. They want to put it to work. They don't want to leave their W-2 job because it's lucrative and they enjoy what they do. So a lot of the investors that we're working with, they like what they do. They just want to hedge against it. They want to have another stream where their money's working as hard for them as they worked for it. And so when people are coming to us, in a lot of cases, we attract a very, I would say, more conservative investor. If you're looking for crazy returns that set the world on fire, we're probably not your people, because we try to underwrite from the most conservative position possible that we can reasonably expect. And people that are attracted to that, they love working with us because of that. But you might find our projected returns low by comparison to other operators, because we're really not in the business of over promising and under delivering, our goal is always to come in on the other side of that equation. So a lot of times people are looking for solid cash flow. They want to know that these assets, they're going to perform. They're not looking for the cash flow to live off of it per se, but cash flow is an indicator of, in a lot of instances, of a strong, thriving business. So that helps, the story if something goes south, or occupancy and vacancy start to get a little soft. So they're looking for solid cash flow coupled with that solid appreciation on the back end. So we do the value add business model where we go and force appreciation and then try to execute cash out refinance in year 2 or 3. But, in line with our conservative nature, we don't actually project any returns on the refinance. We don't actually model that into our numbers. We leave that off the table. And it's one of those, when the time comes, if we're able to execute a refinance, we will, but we're not going to model it because that can artificially skew the numbers.
Yep. Okay. Absolutely makes sense. And appreciate you giving us an idea of the person that you tend to serve. And like a lot of people that are here are, IT sales professionals. But guess what? The guy who started the podcast is an IT sales professional as well. So, it tends to happen. Call me crazy. Yeah. So listen, here's the thing, Anthony, I want to just keep talking to you forever. But the thing is, as you know, there's some structure and there's time limitations. And so the thing is, we got to get to the going long final 3. But the thing is, I never ask the going long final 3 unless you tell me that you're ready for me to ask. So are you ready?
Oh, I am ready.
You were born ready. We knew that. Here we go. So listen, the first of the going long final 3 and question number 3, we started with you over in Minneapolis in the beginning, and now I want to bring it back to this side of the pond. And as you know, I live in Barcelona, Spain. I've been over here for quite a number of years, but I always want you to share with the Going Long family, what is your favorite European city, either that you have visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
So this is going to seem like I'm just sucking up to the host, but, and to preface this, I lived in Germany for 4 years as a child. And so I have some deep roots and affinity for Europe. My favorite European city is easily Barcelona, easily. And the last time I was there, it was probably in 2009 on my birthday. And this is how much I love Barcelona. On my birthday, I went to a climbing gym, sprained my ankle, and then got mugged and lost my wallet, my passport, everything on my birthday. It was a very bad birthday. And despite all that, Barcelona is still my number 1 city.
So, yeah. So, and we appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to visiting or having you visit while I'm here. And you won't sprain any ankles, or at least we'll do our best so that you don't sprain any
No
ankles.
guarantees.
And we'll have a good time. Cool. So another vote for Barcelona. Surprise, surprise. That's why I guess I've been here for such a long time and don't plan on leaving.
It's such a cool city. It's so cool. The culture is so awesome.
I love it. Yeah, I really, really love it. So listen, question number 2 of the Going Long Final 3 has to do with successful people, man. And the thing is, one of the things that happens, Anthony, with successful people, as you know, and you're a successful person, is, successful people, the kind of common denominator is that they only make one mistake throughout their entire journey, which is why they're, okay. I always get that wrong, man. I literally get that wrong every single time. Because the thing is, kind of jokes aside, with really successful people, they're like everybody else, man. And they have lots of either failure events, learning opportunities, mistakes, however you want to call them. But the common denominator is how they react to those events. And so I'd love for you to think of one learning opportunity or mistake or failure, however you want to call it, but not what happened. What's the lesson that you took away from that you would pay forward to the Going Long family?
Mm-hmm. The one that comes to mind, and it's the one that I talk about the most on this subject, is it's the most important. Your ability to build, you can't build anything in isolation, first of all. Whether it's real estate or business building, it's a we game, not a me game. Your ability to go far is dictated by how well you work with and through other people. And one of the hardest lessons I learned was I partnered with a best friend on a business that failed utterly before it ever really got out of the gates. And the lesson there is that partnerships make and break deals. Every business that I've ever been a part of, I've had a good partnership. Every partnership that was poor led to a bad outcome. This particular one, the lesson learned was, one, my buddy and I, we wanted to work together because we're best friends and it was going to be fun. And we thought we had really a good chemistry because we're best friends. What we didn't realize was that we were both really good at the same exact things and really bad at the same exact things. And so what was happening was we were both trying to play to our strengths. Nobody wanted to play to their weaknesses. And you don't need two quarterbacks on the field at the same time. And so it led to friction in our relationship. And then because we didn't communicate clearly from the beginning who was going to be responsible for what, it led to just an explosion in that relationship that to this day has never really fully recovered, because when you do business with friends and family, emotions get tied into it. So that's lesson number one, is be very careful if you're going to work with friends and family. Number two, make sure that you're partnering with somebody who has complementary skills. Their strengths are your weaknesses and vice versa, because you don't need to have two people who are really good at the same thing, but really bad at the same thing. Like, it's not a recipe for success.
Yeah, I love that. So number one, be careful and make sure that also you partner with those people that complement your skills. So love that. And then the last thing, Anthony, I want to ask you is something that you've done over 12 times already, but love to feed the mind here, is help us understand, what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family?
The book that I recommend the most, and I haven't recommended it in a long time, so I'm going to bring it back up now because I think it's just such a good timeless classic, is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It is a fascinating insight into the mind of a person who ostensibly was the emperor of the known world, like he was running the Roman Empire. And the book wasn't written to impress you. It wasn't even written for you. It was just his personal journal to himself. And to see inside of a man's mind as he's wrestling with all the same things that you're wrestling with right now, thousands of years later, or, little old you, like, it's the same problems. They're human problems. And I find that book so uplifting. It's such an easy read, but it's one of those that every time I read it, I take something new away from it.
Mr. Aurelius, Meditations. So love that. And I think that's the first time. We'll have to check the show notes, because that's where everything's going to be, is in the show notes.
Perfect.
And so the thing is, Anthony, I absolutely, I get all tongue-tied just thinking about it, but I absolutely enjoy speaking to you. And I'm just thinking about when we kind of got this whole conversation started, and you were just very open and vulnerable with this and told us about 25 years of struggling with ADHD. And then you talked about, you had the choice to either struggle or kind of lean in, and you leaned in and you decided that, hey, listen, you're going to build systems around yourself and you're going to figure out how you can become hyper-focused. You're going to be able to get things done. You're going to be able to be more productive. And then after that, you started talking about how you were kind of in the rock climbing space, because that gave you a chance to kind of travel around, do things differently. You leveraged some of those skills and then got into a window washing business. And then from there, you found this passion for being able to help other people achieve their goals in real estate. And we didn't even talk about all the other travel stuff that you've been doing. And that's like a whole different stuff. Mm-hmm. And you've helped share like vision, what's happening in the world. You've also helped us to understand more about what's happening in Minneapolis, why people are there, why you've decided to go as a vertically integrated stack, how you're adding value to people on the coasts, in the middle, internationally. And all this stuff, man. And just plus you're just a really cool, awesome guy. And I'm sure that there's so many people that are like, I got to get in touch with Anthony. I need to talk to him. I need to find out more about what he's been doing at Invictus Capital. I've been thinking about writing this book, and he's done this 12 times and all this stuff. So help us understand, what is the best way for the Going Long family to get in touch with you, Anthony, find out more about what you're doing and more about what you're doing at Invictus Capital?
Yeah, the number one way is to go to the website, invictusmultifamily.com. That's going to be the best way. Otherwise, I'm on all the social medias. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm just Anthony Vicino. You can go to my website, anthonyvicino.com. That's a whole, if you look for me, you can find me. And if you reach out, I respond to everybody. So you'll get a hold of me and you'll get a response. So reach out. And then, on the book front, we have a new book coming out that I think could be very helpful for your audience. It's called Passive Investing Made Simple. And it's all about, there's not enough resources out there for people who want to passively invest, and specifically into multifamily syndications. There's not a lot talking about how to do that. We have these great podcasts, but if you're a reader, there's not a ton of great resources. Brian Burke has his fantastic Hands-Off Investor. And so this is our contribution. That will be coming out in July in conjunction with the Jake and Gino community. So keep an eye out for that. I don't know when this episode will go live, but that book might be out. But that hopefully will be a resource that can add some value to somebody's life who's thinking about going down that passive investing route.
Awesome. Passive Investing Made Simple. And we'll make sure that gets in the show notes as well. Hopefully we'll be able to get the hyperlink and all that kind of jazz so people can make it and get there really, really easily. And once again, man, you're just adding value to people. And when you all go to anthonyvicino.com, please go over and check him out. Like, his website is awesome. It tells all the different things that he's doing, and he's got invictuscapital.com. You can go over and see what he and Dan are doing. Fantastic. Listen to the podcast. Guys, they were gracious enough. They had me as a guest a number of months back. It was awesome conversation. They're rocking and rolling, and they're really adding so much value in the Minneapolis area and just connecting and with other people. And look, Anthony, man, I've told you a lot. I appreciate you. And I really, really, really want to thank you for investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family here today, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just really thankful that you had me, man. This was a fantastic conversation. I want to give you some props here because you're the best, I would say, encapsulator or recapsulator of, like, you listen to the entire episode and you like, hey, I just want to acknowledge that because it really shows that you listen. And I think your audience, they probably listen specifically because you're so good at what you do. So keep it up, Billy.
Appreciate that, Anthony. Really, really appreciate that, man. Very, very nice of you. Yeah, man, I just am here to help and continue to connect people and all that kind of good jazz. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Anthony, if you give me like literally 2 seconds, I just want to say a couple things to the Going Long family really quickly, and then we'll
do it.
Out of here, man. So listen, Going Long family, Anthony was awesome, man. He left us so much value today. He gave us an opportunity to get to know him, his experience, help us understand more about Minneapolis. And he's also helped us to understand how we can get to know more about him and what they're doing in Invictus Capital. And so you have a very unique opportunity today. Share today's episode with like 2 or 3 other people. Be that person that is making a positive impact on other people's lives, because number one, that's going to help those people that you care about. And you're also going to be able to attract them to the Going Long family, where we can have more like-minded people as we continue to grow our family, as we continue to grow stronger and move in the same direction together. So at the same time, you and your friends, if you want to take just a couple seconds to leave an honest review of what you think about the podcast, what you think about today's episode, what you liked, what are the things you'd like to hear more about in the future, just take a couple seconds to do that. And as you know, I take every single one of these reviews seriously. I read through every single one of them, and that's how we continue to go out and bring on wonderful guests like Anthony and continue to make the content that we're providing even better for you. So with that being said, I am super excited to welcome you back on the very next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day, and thank you very much.
Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.